For 10 years, Maria Lopez arrived before dawn, her tired hands clutching a dented silver thermos and her faded uniform smelling faintly of lemon cleaner. The skyscraper she worked in shone like glass fire in the morning sun, but inside, she moved through the shadows, polishing, sweeping, cleaning after people who never knew her name. She didn't complain. Life had taken enough from her already, her health, her dreams, her sense that she mattered. But every morning, as she looked at her reflection in the marble floors, she whispered the same prayer. God, help me keep my dignity. To everyone else, she was just the janitor. But to her husband, Miguel, she was the heartbeat of his soul. The woman who stood by him when he was nothing, who believed in him before he ever believed in himself. He never told anyone who he really was. When he bought the company 5 years earlier, he did so quietly, through a chain of investments and partners. Miguel had grown up poor too. He wanted to know how people truly treated those beneath them, not out of suspicion, but out of truth. And the truth revealed itself slowly, through whispers, through glances, through the way the CEO, Nathan Cole, walked past Maria like she was invisible. Nathan was the kind of man success had spoiled. In his glass office on the 40th floor, he measured life in quarterly reports and bottom lines. To him, people were replaceable, numbers in an endless spreadsheet. The janitor, he barely noticed her. But one winter morning, when the company hit a rough patch and shareholders demanded cost efficiency, Nathan decided to make cuts. Maria was first on the list. "She's been here a decade," his assistant said. "Exactly," Nathan replied coldly. 10 years means she's too comfortable. Time for fresh energy. That afternoon, Maria was called upstairs. Her heart raced. She had never been in the CEO's office before. The room smelled of coffee and arrogance. Nathan didn't even look up when she entered. "Maria, thank you for your service," he said briskly, flipping through papers. "We're restructuring, and your position is being eliminated. You'll receive 2 weeks' severance." She froze, gripping her thermos. "Sir, I've been here 10 years, she said softly. "I've never missed a day. I cleaned your office when your wife passed away. I stayed late when there was a flood on the 7th floor. Her voice trembled. Nathan sighed impatiently. "This isn't personal. Security will escort you out after you sign the forms." When Maria left that building, the cold wind cut through her thin jacket, but what hurt more was not losing her job. It was losing her pride. For a decade she had served silently, believing kindness mattered. That night she didn't tell Miguel what had happened. She didn't want him to see her shame. She cooked dinner, smiled weakly, and said she was just a little tired. But Miguel could tell. He saw the sadness in her eyes, the way her hands shook as she washed dishes. Later, when she fell asleep, he sat quietly in the dark, staring at the documents on his desk, the ownership papers, the corporate filings with his name hidden behind layers of trust accounts. He had built this empire quietly, because he wanted to see who people truly were when they thought no one was watching. And now, he had seen enough. The next morning, Miguel arrived at the office for a scheduled board meeting. No one recognized him. He was always discreet, humble, dressed in plain clothes. But when he entered the conference room, everyone straightened up. The chairman, the legal team, the executives, all stood. Nathan froze. He'd seen this man once or twice at high-level meetings, but never really spoken to him. "Mr. Reyes," the chairman said respectfully, "good to see you." Miguel nodded slightly, his expression unreadable. He took his seat at the head of the table. "Before we begin," he said calmly, "I want to discuss something important. Our people." Nathan smiled thinly. "Of course, Mr. Reyes, I assure you we've been making necessary cuts to improve efficiency." "Necessary?" Miguel interrupted, his voice quiet but sharp. "Tell me, Nathan, was firing the janitor necessary?" The room fell silent. Nathan blinked. "Sir, with respect, she was just a janitor. 10 years, no promotion. We needed—" 10 years, Miguel repeated slowly. "And you didn't even know her name." Nathan shifted uncomfortably. I don't personally handle lower staff." Miguel leaned forward, his eyes steady. "That's the problem." He stood, walking to the window, looking out at the skyline. "Do you know what this company was built on, Nathan? Not steel, not glass, not numbers. It was built on sweat. On the people who show up before dawn, who keep the lights on, who clean your office when you're too busy to look them in the eye. He turned. And yesterday, you fired one of them. Nathan swallowed. Sir, if this is about policy, I can rehire. You can't rehire dignity, Miguel said softly. You took something from her you can't return. The other board members exchanged confused glances, whispering. Miguel reached into his briefcase and pulled out a file. Do you know who Maria Lopez is? He asked. Nathan frowned. The janitor. Miguel smiled sadly. She's also my wife. Gasps filled the room. Nathan's face drained of color. He stammered, Your wife? Miguel nodded slowly. Yes, the woman you fired after 10 years of loyal service. The woman who never once complained, even when you walked past her like she didn't exist. She didn't tell you who she was because she didn't need to. She wanted to earn her place like anyone else. Nathan tried to speak, but no words came. The other executives stared in stunned silence as Miguel continued, his voice trembling now with emotion. You see, I grew up poor. I swept factory floors while people like you made decisions from glass offices. And I swore if I ever built something, I'd make sure every person, from the janitor to the CEO, was treated with respect. My wife taught me that. She's the reason this company exists. And you failed that test. The room was heavy with shame. Nathan lowered his head. Sir, I didn't know, he whispered. Miguel looked at him for a long time, then said quietly, That's exactly the problem, and you never wanted to know. He turned to the chairman. Effective immediately. Nathan Cole is relieved of his position as CEO. Nathan's mouth fell open. Sir, please. Miguel raised a hand. You can collect your things by noon. And this time the janitor won't have to clean up after you. The story spread through the company like wildfire. Employees whispered in hallways, stunned that the quiet janitor they'd seen for years was the wife of the mysterious owner. But what shocked them more was how little any of them had noticed her, how often they'd looked past her, how invisible kindness can become in a world obsessed with status. A week later, Maria returned to the building, not in her uniform but in a simple navy dress. Everyone stopped and stared. Some smiled awkwardly. Others bowed their heads in guilt. She didn't come for revenge. She came to say goodbye to the few who had treated her kindly. When she reached the top floor, Miguel was waiting by the elevator. He smiled softly. You ready? He asked. She nodded, tears glistening in her eyes. I don't want them to fear me, she whispered. Then don't, he said. Let them learn from you instead. Before leaving, Maria walked into the janitor's closet, her old space, where a small radio still sat on the shelf, and a note she'd once taped to the wall still hung there. Do your work with love even if no one notices. She smiled, closed the door gently, and walked out for the last time. That afternoon, Miguel gathered the entire staff, from the board members to the cleaning crew, in the main lobby. He stepped forward and said, For too long this company has been divided by titles. Today that ends. From now on, no one in this building is invisible. He turned to Maria. This company exists because of people like her, the ones who show up, who care, who give their best even when no one is watching. The employees clapped, some with tears in their eyes. Nathan wasn't there. He had already packed his things, humbled, broken, forced to face the kind of failure money can't erase. Later that evening, as the sun dipped behind the skyline, Miguel and Maria stood on the balcony of their home overlooking the city. You didn't have to do all that, she said softly. I didn't want revenge. Miguel smiled, his hand finding hers. It wasn't revenge, and he said, it was truth. People forget that power doesn't make them better. It only shows who they really are. She rested her head on his shoulder, the wind playing with her hair. Do you think he learned anything? She asked. Miguel looked out at the glittering lights below. I hope so. Because if he didn't, then everything we built means nothing. Days turned into weeks, and slowly the company began to change. A new CEO was appointed, one chosen not for charm or connections but for compassion. The cafeteria now served free breakfast to the cleaning staff. Employees started learning the names of the people who made their comfort possible. Every Christmas, Miguel made sure bonuses reached every level of the company. And at the bottom of every payslip, a new line was printed. Your work matters. One morning, a young intern stopped Maria in the lobby. "Mrs. Lopez," she said shyly, "I just wanted to say, your story changed the way I see people." Maria smiled warmly. "Thank you, dear. Just remember, no one is ever just anything. Not just a janitor, not just an intern. We all matter." As she left the building, the same one she had once entered every dawn for 10 long years, Maria looked up at its towering height and whispered a prayer, not for wealth, not for revenge, but for kindness. Because in the end, that was her true legacy. To remind a world obsessed with titles that dignity is not earned by position, but by compassion. And somewhere inside that glass tower, in the office where once arrogance ruled, a new plaque hung on the wall, framed in silver, engraved with her words, "Respect is the foundation of every empire." And from that day forward, no one in that company, from the CEO to the janitor, ever forgot the name Maria Lopez, the woman who lost her job but taught an entire corporation what it meant to be human.